Every financial decision you made today was what you bought, what you avoided, what you felt guilty about, what you told yourself you deserved, was not yours. It was a program written into your operating system decades ago by people who never sat you down and taught you a single thing about money. Your parents did not need to teach you. They did not need to explain. They transmitted their entire relationship with money directly into your nervous system through thousands of small moments you cannot consciously remember, but your brain recorded with absolute precision. And that program is still running right now in every purchase, every hesitation, every financial decision you believe you're making freely. The psychology of money begins long before your first paycheck. It begins in the rooms where money was either discussed openly or buried in silence, and the pattern you inherited is shaping your wealth, your investment behavior, and your financial future far more than your salary ever will. Subscribe to this channel now. This is financial education at a depth that the most elite psychology programs do not teach to ordinary working adults. This is your only payment for the richest free content you will find anywhere on the internet. Let us begin. I know someone, I will call him a friend because that is what he became after years of the same conversations, who could not understand why he was 41 years old, earning a strong income, working in a respected position, and still living with the constant low-level hum of financial anxiety that never went away regardless of how much he earned. He was not bad with money in any obvious way. He paid his bills. He never carried extreme debt. He had a reasonable apartment, a car that worked, a wardrobe that matched his professional environment. From the outside, his financial behavior looked perfectly functional. But inside, something was wrong, and he could not name it. Every time his bank balance climbed above a certain number, a number he had never consciously chosen, but that his nervous system seemed to recognize instinctively, he would find himself spending until it came back down to the range that felt familiar. Not reckless spending, not luxury purchases, just a gradual, almost gravitational drift back to a financial position that matched some invisible template he carried inside him. He upgraded his phone through Samsung or Apple without needing to. He added a Spotify premium subscription, then an Audible membership, then an upgraded storage plan, then a better gym. He started ordering through Uber Eats on nights when cooking felt like effort, then 3 nights a week, then most nights. He subscribed to Netflix, then a second streaming platform, then a third. Each purchase was individually rational. Each one was modest, and each one served the invisible function of returning his financial position to the exact level his subconscious mind had been calibrated to accept as normal. The number his savings could never sustainably exceed was almost identical to the amount his parents had kept in their account when he was growing up. He did not know this. He had never checked. But when he finally looked, when the connection was pointed out to him, the match was so precise, it disturbed him. His parents had lived in a permanent state of financial adequacy without margin, not poor, not struggling, but never building anything beyond the immediate horizon. And without a single conversation about money, without a single lesson, without a single deliberate instruction, their son had absorbed that exact financial ceiling as his own, and had been unconsciously maintaining it for 2 decades of adult life, through every raise, every promotion, every career advancement that should have moved him beyond it. He had inherited their financial program the way you inherit an accent, not through instruction, but through immersion. If this sounds like something you recognize, stay with me, because what you're about to learn will explain precisely why your financial behavior follows patterns you did not choose, and why changing your income without changing the program that runs beneath it produces exactly the same result every time. This is content that operates at the intersection of developmental psychology, neuroscience, and personal finance. It is the psychology of money at a level of depth that even the finest universities do not teach to ordinary people, and you're receiving it right now, for free. The program that runs your financial life was installed during a period that developmental psychology identifies as the critical window for financial socialization, roughly between the ages of 5 and 14. During this window, your brain was not learning about money through explicit lessons. It was learning through observation, emotional absorption, and pattern recognition operating entirely beneath conscious awareness. Every time your parents discussed money, or more importantly, every time they avoided discussing it, your developing brain recorded the emotional context surrounding those moments with extraordinary precision. Not the words, not the logic, the feeling, the tension in the room when a bill arrived, the tone of voice when someone asked for something that cost more than expected, the silence that followed a large purchase, the way your parents' posture changed when money became the subject, the invisible boundary between what could be discussed openly and what had to be navigated carefully, quietly, or not at all. Your brain recorded all of it, and from those thousands of micro-observations, it constructed a comprehensive set of unconscious beliefs about what money means, what it does to relationships, how much of it is safe to have, and what kind of person you need to be in relation to it. These unconscious beliefs are what behavioral psychology calls money scripts. Deeply held assumptions about money that operate beneath the surface of conscious thought and drive financial behavior with remarkable consistency across an entire adult lifetime. The critical insight is that money scripts are not formed through rational analysis. They are formed through emotional experience during a period when the brain lacks the cognitive tools to evaluate what it is absorbing. A child whose parents argued about money does not learn the rational lesson that financial planning reduces conflict. That child's brain learns the emotional lesson that money is dangerous, that money causes pain, that money threatens the stability of the people they depend on for survival. And that emotional lesson, not the rational one, becomes the script that runs silently through every financial decision they make for the next 40 years. A child whose parents never discussed money at all, where finances were handled behind closed doors, where the subject was implicitly off limits, does not learn the rational lesson that financial privacy is a personal choice. That child's brain learns that money is something to be avoided, something uncomfortable, something that exists in a category separate from normal life. And that script produces an adult who chronically avoids financial planning, who delays investment decisions, who cannot bring themselves to open a retirement account or review their portfolio, not because they lack intelligence or discipline, but because their operating system classified money as a subject that belongs in the avoidance category, and the brain follows its programming with absolute fidelity. The neuroscience behind this is precise and well documented. During the critical window of financial socialization, the brain is forming neural pathways through a process of synaptic strengthening. Connections that are activated repeatedly become physically stronger and faster, while connections that are rarely used weaken and eventually disappear. If your childhood home was an environment where financial anxiety was the dominant emotional context around money, the neural pathways connecting money to anxiety were activated thousands of times during your developmental window. Those pathways are now superhighways in your adult brain, fast, automatic, and almost impossible to override with conscious effort alone. When you check your bank balance and feel a spike of anxiety before you even see the number, that is not a rational response to your current financial reality. That is a neural pathway built in childhood firing automatically, producing the same emotional response your parents' nervous systems produced in the same situation decades ago. You're not responding to your finances. You are responding to theirs. Through hardware they installed without knowing they were installing it. This is why two people with identical incomes, identical expenses, and identical financial knowledge can have completely different financial behaviors and completely different outcomes. Their programs are different. One person's parents treated money as a tool for building long-term security, discussed it openly, made financial decisions visibly, showed their children what investment looked like, what planning meant, what the relationship between patience and wealth actually was in practice. That person walks into adult life with neural pathways that connect money to strategy, to building, to long-term thinking. Financial planning feels natural to them. Opening an investment account feels like an obvious step. Reviewing their portfolio feels satisfying, not threatening. They are not smarter. They are not more disciplined. They are running a different program. The other person's parents treated money as a source of stress, something that arrived and immediately needed to be allocated to immediate obligations, something that never accumulated, something that was spent as it came because holding it felt temporary and uncertain. That person walks into adult life with neural pathways that connect money to immediacy, to spending, to the belief that money in hand is money that will disappear, so it might as well be used now. They earn the same income as the first person, but their savings rate is a fraction of it. Their investment portfolio is non-existent, and their financial anxiety is chronic, regardless of how much they earn. The program determines the outcome, not the salary. Here is where it becomes genuinely disturbing. Research in behavioral economics has demonstrated that money scripts are not merely psychological habits that can be changed through awareness or willpower. They function as identity structures, deeply embedded beliefs about who you are in relation to money that your brain defends with the same intensity it defends any core aspect of your identity. When you attempt to behave financially in a way that contradicts your inherited money script, your brain generates genuine psychological discomfort. The same kind of discomfort you would feel if you tried to behave in a way that contradicted your core personality. Saving aggressively when your program says money should be spent. Investing long-term when your program says money is temporary. building wealth when your program says wealth is for other people, not for people like you. Each of these actions, when they contradict the inherited script, triggers an identity alarm in your brain that says something is wrong. And the brain resolves that alarm not by updating the script, but by pulling your behavior back to the programmed baseline. This is why you can read every personal finance book published, understand intellectually exactly what you should do with your money, and still find yourself repeating the same patterns your parents modelled. The knowledge enters your conscious mind, but the program runs deeper than consciousness, and the program always wins until it is confronted directly at the level where it operates. If you're watching this and recognizing your own pattern for the first time, if you are seeing the connection between how money moved through your childhood home and how it moves through your adult life, leave a comment telling me what the dominant emotion around money was in your household growing up. Was it anxiety, silence, conflict, scarcity, control? Your answer will reveal which program you're running, and the responses will show you that thousands of other people are running the exact same one. Now that you understand the mechanism, the practical question becomes unavoidable. How do you rewrite a program that was installed before you had the cognitive capacity to evaluate it? Traditional financial advice fails here for the same reason it fails everywhere. It operates at the level of information and arithmetic when the actual problem operates at the level of identity and neurology. Telling someone with a scarcity program to save 20% of their income is like telling someone with a fear of heights to simply walk across a bridge. The instruction is clear. The execution is blocked by something far deeper than understanding. The first strategy is what I call the program audit, and it requires a specific kind of honesty that most people have never applied to their financial lives. You need to identify, with precision, exactly which money script you inherited, not in vague terms, in specific, concrete, behavioural terms. What was the maximum amount of money your parents kept accessible at any time? What happened emotionally in your household when an unexpected expense arrived? What was the implicit rule about wanting things that cost more than the family norm? What did your parents' body language communicate about wealth, about people who had more, about the possibility of building something beyond the current situation? These are not abstract questions. They are diagnostic tools that reveal the exact parameters of the program you're running. Most people discover that their current financial ceiling, the amount of savings above which they unconsciously self-sabotage, matches their parents' financial ceiling with startling precision. The program does not just influence behaviour, it sets limits. The second strategy directly confronts the identity structure that protects the inherited program. When your brain treats your parents' financial pattern as part of your identity, any attempt to exceed that pattern feels like becoming someone you are not. The counter strategy is deliberate identity expansion, consciously and repeatedly exposing yourself to financial behaviours and environments that contradict your inherited script until the brain builds new pathways strong enough to compete with the old ones. This means consuming content about wealth building, about investment strategy, about financial independence, not as entertainment, but as identity programming. When you spend 40 minutes watching content about long-term portfolio construction, your brain is not just receiving information, it is building neural pathways that connect you to a financial identity your parents never modelled. When you follow people who discuss retirement planning, patrimony growth and financial strategy with the same comfort your parents discussed avoiding financial topics, you are literally rewiring the association your brain makes between money and identity. This is not motivational advice, this is applied neuroscience. The brain builds pathways through repeated activation, and you can choose which pathways to activate. The third strategy targets the most stubborn element of the inherited program, the emotional response. Your parents' financial emotions live inside your nervous system as automatic responses that fire before conscious thought can intervene. The anxiety you feel when your savings exceed your inherited ceiling. The discomfort you feel when making a large investment decision. The guilt you feel when spending on something your parents would have considered unnecessary. These are not your emotions. They are inherited emotional programs running on your hardware. The strategy is to create what I call an emotional override protocol, the deliberate practice of identifying the inherited emotion in real time, naming it as inherited rather than current, and choosing a different response while the emotion is still present. When you check your investment portfolio and feel anxiety on a pause, that anxiety belongs to a household that no longer exists. Your current financial reality is different. The response you are feeling was calibrated for a situation that is not yours. Name it, acknowledge it, and then make the financial decision that your current reality supports rather than the one your childhood program demands. This does not eliminate the inherited emotion. It creates a gap between the emotion and the action, and in that gap, you insert a new choice. Repeated thousands of times, that gap becomes a new pathway. The old program still exists, but it no longer controls the output. The fourth strategy is the most structurally powerful and the most counterintuitive. You need to make your new financial behavior visible to yourself. The inherited program was installed through observation. Your brain watched your parents' financial patterns and absorbed them as normal. The rewrite works the same way, but your brain needs to watch your new financial patterns and gradually absorb them as the new normal. This means making your investment growth visible. Checking your portfolio regularly, not anxiously, but with the deliberate intention of showing your brain that this is who you are now. It means tracking your net worth monthly and acknowledging the trajectory. It means creating a financial environment where the evidence of your new program is as present and as constant as the evidence of your parents' program was during your childhood. When your brain sees consistent evidence that you are someone who builds wealth, who invests long-term, who maintains financial strategy with the same consistency your parents maintain their patterns, it begins to update the identity structure. Not instantly, not easily, but with the same gradual, powerful certainty with which the original program was installed. You are not fighting your inheritance. You are writing a new one for yourself and for anyone who will one day observe your relationship with money the way you once observed your parents' relationship with it. The person I mentioned earlier, the one who discovered his financial ceiling matched his parents' ceiling with disturbing precision, did something remarkable once he understood the mechanism. He did not try to change his spending through budgeting apps or expense tracking. He understood that the problem was not arithmetic. He set up an automatic investment transfer that moved everything above his inherited ceiling into a wealth-building account. An account he checked weekly, not to manage it, but to show his brain the new pattern. He chose to spend time with content about financial independence instead of content about consumption. He started treating his financial education as identity reconstruction rather than information gathering. He replaced his evening habit of browsing products on Amazon with reviewing his portfolio performance. He substituted his morning Starbucks routine twice a week with adding that amount to his investment account. Not because the coffee was expensive, but because the ritual of redirecting money from consumption to building created a visible new pattern for his brain to absorb. Within 18 months, his savings had exceeded his inherited ceiling for the first time in his adult life. The anxiety was still there. The inherited program still fired its warning, but it no longer controlled the outcome. He had built new pathways strong enough to override the old ones, and every month that his new pattern held, those pathways grew stronger while the old ones weakened. He did not change his income. He did not change his budget. He changed the program, and the program changed everything. What you have just learned is one essential layer of something much larger operating beneath every financial life. The inherited money program, installed through childhood observation, maintained through identity structures, protected by emotional responses calibrated to a household that no longer exists, is the invisible architecture that determines how much wealth you are psychologically permitted to build before your brain pulls you back to the baseline your parents established. But it connects to something even deeper. There is a reason some people break the inherited program after understanding it once, while others recognize it completely and still cannot override it. That reason lives in a layer of the psychology of money that goes beyond what any single video can cover. A layer about how the brain decides which identity to protect when the old program and the new one compete for control of your financial behavior. If this changed how you see your own financial patterns, if you can now trace a direct line between your parents' relationship with money and your own, subscribe, because the next layer of the psychology of money explains something genuinely unexpected about why the financial silence in your family of origin did more damage than any bad investment ever could. And share this video with someone who is still running their parents' program without knowing it, someone who earns well, plans carefully, and still cannot break past a financial ceiling they never consciously chose. This might be the one piece of content that finally shows them where the ceiling came from and how to dismantle it permanently. All content presented in this video is based on scientific studies, peer-reviewed articles, and research in behavioral psychology and neuroscience.